The verdict of exile Captain Elena Vasquez stood before the towering assembly of the Galactic Council, her uniform crisp, despite the weight of the moment that would determine humanity's fate. The great assembly hall stretched endlessly upward, its crystalline walls reflecting the bioluminescent patterns of 1,000 different species. Representatives from across the galaxy filled every seat, their alien forms creating a sea of colors, shapes, and sounds that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. The Altarian Chancellor rose from his elevated platform, his forearms gesturing in the formal manner of his species. His voice carried through the chamber's perfect acoustics, translated instantly into every language known to galactic civilization. We are gathered today to address the charges brought against the species known as humans. These charges include unauthorized expansion, violation of territorial agreements, and refusal to comply with established galactic protocols. Elena felt the eyes of every delegate upon her. Behind her sat the human delegation, including Commander Marcus Chen, whose military bearing remained steady despite the hostile atmosphere. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, their chief xenobiologist, had spent years building relationships with many of the species now sitting in judgment. Her face showed the pain of seeing allies turn away from humanity's cause. The prosecutor, a Krillian with silver scales that caught the chamber's light, began presenting the case against humanity. In the 43 years since first contact, humans have established colonies in 21 star systems without proper authorization. They have refused to submit their military capabilities for standard galactic review. Most concerning, they have consistently chosen independent action over consultation with this council when faced with critical decisions. Elena watched as holographic displays showed human colonies thriving on worlds that had been barren when they arrived. The prosecutor made them look like violations rather than achievements. Every act of human ingenuity was twisted into evidence of their supposed aggression. Commander Chen leaned forward slightly, his jaw clenched as he watched footage of human rescue operations being labeled as military interventions. These were missions where human ships had saved thousands of lives from natural disasters and pirate attacks. But the Council's bureaucracy had required weeks of approvals that would have left countless beings to die. The ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field, spoke next. Humans display an emotional volatility that makes them unpredictable partners. Their decision-making process lacks the logical framework that has maintained galactic peace for 2 millennia. They act on instinct rather than careful deliberation. Dr. Mitchell rose to address this claim. Honorable delegates, what you call emotional volatility, we call compassion. Human instinct has saved lives when your careful deliberation would have cost them. We have brought innovation to stagnant technologies and fresh perspectives to ancient problems. Our contributions to galactic medicine, engineering, and arts have enriched every world we've touched. The Xilarating Trade Federation's speaker, a crystalline being whose voice resonated like singing glass, interrupted. Human economic practices disrupt established trade relationships. They create competitive markets where cooperation once flourished. Their technological advancement occurs too rapidly for proper integration into galactic society. Elena, finally, stepped forward to make humanity's final defense. We stand accused of the crime of being human. Yes, we expand rapidly because we see opportunity where others see only empty space. Yes, we act quickly because we understand that hesitation costs lives. Yes, we compete because competition drives innovation. These are not flaws to be corrected. but strengths that have allowed us to contribute to this great galactic community. The debate continued for hours, with species after species rising to voice their concerns about humanity's place in the galaxy. The Molluscan Empire worried about human military capabilities. The Avian Confederacy feared human territorial ambitions. Even species that had benefited from human aid seemed reluctant to speak in their defense. Admiral James Rodriguez, commanding the human fleet stationed at the system's edge, listened to the proceedings through his ship's communication array. His vessels held millions of human civilians who had been evacuated from frontier colonies as a precaution. The irony wasn't lost on him that humanity's own preparation for this possibility was being used as evidence of their aggressive nature. When the time came for voting, Alina felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. One by one, the species of the Galactic Council cast their decisions. The Altarians voted for expulsion. The Krillians voted for expulsion. Even the younger species that had once looked to humanity for guidance ultimately chose the safety of conformity over the risk of association. The final tally was devastating. Of the 1,247 voting members, only 31 voted against expulsion, with 89 abstaining. The rest had decided that humanity was too dangerous to remain in galactic space. The Chancellor's voice filled the chamber as he announced the verdict. By overwhelming majority, the Galactic Council has decided that the human species must be relocated beyond the void barrier. You have 60 standard days to gather your people and depart from all territories within the galactic boundary. Any attempt to return will be considered an act of war. Alina closed her eyes briefly, then opened them to look directly at the Chancellor. Where are we to go? Beyond the void barrier lies only death and madness. No species has ever survived. There, the Chancellor's expression remained neutral. That is no longer our concern. You have brought this upon yourselves through your refusal to adapt to galactic civilization. Perhaps isolation will teach you the value of cooperation. Lieutenant Anna Kowalski piloted her scout ship alongside the massive human Exodus fleet as it approached the void barrier. The young pilot had volunteered to lead the advanced scouts, her ship's sensors probing the dark energy field that had been humanity's death sentence. Behind her stretched the greatest migration in human history, millions of souls leaving everything they had ever known. The void barrier itself was a sight that defied description. It appeared as a wall of swirling darkness shot through with veins of energy that pulsed with colors that had no names. No probe sent into its depths had ever returned. No signal had ever penetrated its surface. It was the galaxy's ultimate boundary, and beyond it lay the unknown. Admiral Rodriguez coordinated the massive fleet from his flagship, the Unity. All ships maintain formation. We enter the void as one people, and will emerge as one people. No one gets left behind. Dr. Mitchell worked frantically in her laboratory, trying to understand what they were about to face. Her instruments detected energy patterns unlike anything in galactic databases. The void seemed to pulse with a rhythm that almost resembled a heartbeat. Alina, these readings are impossible. The energy density in there should tear apart any matter that enters. Alina stood on the Unity's bridge, watching the barrier grow larger as they approached. Then we'll have to be stronger than any matter they've ever seen. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We'll survive this too. The first ships to cross the barrier experienced something unprecedented. As Lieutenant Kowalski's scout ship penetrated the energy field, she felt a strange sensation wash over her. Instead of the expected destruction, she felt ... enhanced. Her reflexes quickened. Her thoughts became clearer, and her connection to her ship's systems deepened in ways she couldn't explain. "Admiral," she reported, her voice filled with wonder. "I'm alive, more than alive. Something about this energy, it's not destroying us, it's changing us." Commander Chen commanded the first military vessels to cross. His ship's weapons systems showed power readings that exceeded their theoretical maximums. The void's energy was interacting with human technology in ways that defied understanding. "All units, report status. What are you experiencing?" The reports that came back were extraordinary. Human crews were reporting enhanced physical capabilities, improved mental acuity, and an almost intuitive understanding of their equipment. The void wasn't killing them. It was making them stronger. Dr. Mitchell's voice crackled over the communication system from her mobile laboratory. "I'm detecting massive changes in human physiology. Our cellular structure is adapting to the void's energy. We're not just surviving, we're evolving." As the massive colony ships crossed the barrier, carrying millions of civilians, the transformation became even more apparent. Children who had been sick were suddenly healthy. Adults who had struggled with chronic conditions found themselves stronger than they had ever been. The elderly reported feeling decades younger. The first world they discovered within the void. It was a planet that orbited a star unlike any in normal space. The star burned with dark energy, and the planet's surface was covered with structures that seemed to shift and change as they watched. When the advanced teams landed, they found the atmosphere not only breathable, but somehow perfect for human physiology. Alina walked across the alien landscape, feeling the void's energy flowing through her like a warm current. The abandoned structures around them were clearly artificial, but they seemed to respond to human presence. Lights activated as they approached, and controlled surfaces seemed to reconfigure themselves for human use. "Sarah, what do you make of this?" Alina asked, gesturing at the responsive architecture. Dr. Mitchell ran her hands across a control panel that had literally grown from the ground to meet her touch. "This technology is millions of years old, but it's still functional. More than functional, it's welcoming us, as if it was waiting for us to arrive." Admiral Rodriguez established the first human settlement in the void, a colony they named New Dawn. The name seemed appropriate as humanity began to understand that their exile wasn't an ending but a beginning. The void's energy allowed them to accomplish things that would have been impossible in normal space. Commander Chun's security forces discovered they could move through the void's twisted space-time in ways that defied conventional physics. They could be in multiple locations simultaneously, phase through solid matter, and perceive threats across dimensions. "Alina, we're not just adapting to this environment, we're becoming something new." As the first part of humanity's transformation drew to a close, they began to understand a terrible truth. The Galactic Council hadn't discovered the void barrier by accident. The ancient structures on their new world contained records of other species, other exiles who had been cast out over the millennia. Most had died, but some had survived long enough to leave warnings and wisdom. Alina stood in the central chamber of the ancient facility, reading the translated warnings of species that had been exiled centuries ago. They've been doing this for thousands of years. Any species that shows true independence, true innovation, gets cast out. We're not the first, but we might be the first to not just survive, but thrive. The void had chosen humanity not as victims, but as inheritors. In trying to destroy them, the Galactic Council had accidentally created something far more powerful than they could have imagined. The exile was complete. But the real story was just beginning. Masters of the Dark Realm, 5 years had passed since humanity's exile, and New Dawn had grown from a desperate settlement into a thriving metropolis that existed partially outside normal space-time. Director Sarah Mitchell stood in her laboratory, which was built into the living rock of the void world, watching her latest experiments with an energy form that responded to human consciousness itself. The transformation of humanity had exceeded even her wildest projections. The humans who had been born in the void showed capabilities that bordered on what the old galaxy would have called magic. Children could phase through solid matter, communicate telepathically across vast distances, and manipulate the dark energy. With their thoughts alone, Captain Elena Vasquez, now serving as colonial administrator, walked through the bustling streets of New Dawn. The city's architecture was a blend of human engineering and void technology, creating structures that seemed to shift and adapt to their inhabitants' needs. Citizens moved through the streets with an effortless grace that came from their enhanced physicality, while overhead, transport pods navigated through dimensional shortcuts that reduced travel time to mere seconds. Status report, Sarah Elena requested as she entered the research facility. The 2 women had become the unofficial leaders of humanity's transformation, guiding their people through changes that would have been unimaginable in their old lives. Dr. Mitchell gestured to a holographic display showing the extent of human expansion throughout the void. We've established 17 colonies across 12 star systems. Our population has grown to 15 million, and every single human shows some degree of void adaptation. The children born here are exhibiting capabilities that surpass even our most enhanced adults. Gennaro Marquez Chun, formerly commander, approached them with news from the frontier. His promotion had come naturally as humanity's defense needs evolved. The void wasn't empty, and not everything within it was friendly. We've made contact with 3 more survivor species. The Carillions have been hiding in a pocket dimension for 800 years. The Nexari managed to survive by merging their consciousness with void energy, but they lost their physical forms. And the VORTHAK ... double quotes, his expression darkening. The Vorthok were driven insane by isolation. They're a threat to everyone, including themselves. Alina absorbed this information with the enhanced mental clarity that all humans now possessed. How many species have been exiled over the millennia? Our best estimate is over 200 species have been cast into the void over the past 5,000 years. Most died within the first year. Maybe 30 species managed to survive longer than a decade. Only 6, including us, have survived more than a century. Dr. Mitchell's research had uncovered the terrible truth about the Galactic Council's history. The void wasn't just a convenient dumping ground for unwanted species. It was a deliberate tool of control, used to eliminate any civilization that might challenge the established order. The energy barrier that kept the void separate from normal space wasn't natural. It was artificial, maintained by a network of ancient devices that the Council had inherited from their predecessors. Captain Anna Kowalski, now commanding the Void Scouts, returned from a deep reconnaissance mission with disturbing news. Her ability to navigate the void's twisted space-time had made her humanity's premier explorer, capable of traveling vast distances in a matter of hours. Alina, I've found something you need to see. The Council isn't just maintaining the void barrier, they're planning to strengthen it. The holographic display showed intelligence gathered from the barrier's edge. Council fleets were assembling massive construction projects, building new barrier generators that would make the void completely impenetrable. They're not just trying to keep us out anymore. They're trying to make sure we can never return. Dr. Thomas Wright, the physicist who had become humanity's expert on void energy manipulation, joined the discussion. His research had unlocked applications that turned the dark energy into tools of incredible power. The barrier enhancement will have an unexpected side effect. It will increase the void's energy density by approximately 300%. For species that have already adapted, like us, this will result in another evolutionary leap. Alina felt the weight of leadership as she processed this information. Humanity had not just survived their exile, they had thrived beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their technology now surpassed anything the Council possessed. Their physical and mental capabilities had evolved to levels that would seem godlike to their former peers. And now, the Council's own actions were about to make them even more powerful. "What are our options?" Alina asked, though she already knew the answer. Asterisk. General Chun's expression was grim but determined. "We have 3 choices. We can remain hidden in the void forever. We can try to negotiate with the Council from a position of weakness. Or we can return to the galaxy and reclaim our place by force." "There's a 4th option," Dr. Mitchell interjected. "We can return as liberators. The survivor species we've encountered aren't the only ones suffering under the Council's rule. Our intelligence suggests that even within the galaxy, many species are growing tired of the rigid hierarchy that stifles innovation and growth." Captain Kowalski's scouts had been making contact with dissatisfied species throughout the galaxy. The younger races, in particular, were beginning to question why they had to seek permission from ancient bureaucrats for every significant decision. "There's a resistance movement forming. They call themselves the Free Worlds Alliance. They've been waiting for someone powerful enough to challenge the Council's authority." Alina made her decision with the clarity that came from years of leading humanity through impossible challenges. "We return to the galaxy, but not as conquerors. We return as the leaders of a new galactic civilization, one based on merit and innovation rather than ancient privileges and rigid hierarchies." The preparation for humanity's return began immediately. Dr. Wright's teams developed new technologies that could function in normal space while retaining their void enhancements. General Chun's forces trained with weapons and tactics that would seem like magic to any opposition. Dr. Mitchell worked on diplomatic protocols for species that could barely comprehend what humanity had become. The first sign of humanity's return came when Council deep space monitors detected impossible energy signatures at the edge of the void barrier. Ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously began appearing throughout the galaxy, their crews making contact with the resistance movements that had been growing in secret. Alina stood on the bridge of the new flagship, Humanity's Dawn, as it materialized in the space that had once been humanity's home system. The ship existed partially in the void and partially in normal space, making it effectively invulnerable to conventional weapons. Around her, the crew worked with an efficiency that came from enhanced human capabilities and technology that responded to thought as much as touch. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," she ordered. The response came within minutes. The same Altarian Chancellor who had pronounced their exile now faced them across the void of space, his 4 arms trembling with what might have been fear or rage. "This is impossible. You were exiled. You were supposed to die." Elena's image appeared on screens throughout the galaxy as she broadcast her message to every inhabited world. "We were exiled because you feared what we might become. Your fear was justified. We have returned, but not as the species you cast out. We have evolved beyond your understanding, grown beyond your control, and united with others you have wronged. Behind her, the view screens showed the gathering fleet of humanity's new allies. Ships from dozens of survivor species emerged from the void, their crews working alongside human commanders. The Free Worlds Alliance vessels appeared throughout the galaxy, their crews openly declaring their support for the new order. The age of the Galactic Council is over, Alina continued. We offer you a choice. Join us in building a new galactic civilization based on merit, innovation, and freedom, or face the consequences of your centuries of oppression. The Chancellor's response was predictable. You are criminals and exiles. The Council will never recognize your authority. Alina smiled, and for the first time in 5 years, she felt truly free. Then you have chosen poorly. General Chen, begin the liberation. Across the galaxy, human forces began systematically dismantling the Council's control systems. But this wasn't a war of conquest. It was a war of liberation. On world after world, oppressed species rose up to join the humans, their joy at freedom mixing with awe at humanity's transformation. The void barrier itself began to collapse as Dr. Wright's teams disabled the ancient generators that had maintained it for millennia. The artificial boundary between normal space and the void disappeared, and with it, the tool that had kept the galaxy under control for 5,000 years. As the first phase of liberation concluded, Alina stood once again in a great assembly hall. But this time, it was humanity and their allies who occupied the seats of power. The old Council species were not eliminated or exiled. They were offered the chance to join the new order as equals rather than rulers. The galaxy is free, Alina announced to the assembled representatives. The age of artificial barriers and arbitrary hierarchies is over. We are all equals in the infinite darkness between the stars, and together, we will build something greater than any of us could achieve alone. Humanity had been cast into the void to die, but instead they had become the masters of the dark realm. Their exile had been intended as punishment, but it had become the foundation for a new galactic civilization. The species that had been deemed too dangerous to remain had returned to free everyone else. The story of humanity's conquest of the void had become the legend of the galaxy's liberation, and in the end, the darkness that was meant to destroy them had instead become the light that set everyone free. Asterisk,